Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stage, Kristen Kaufman from the New York City Office of the Mayor and Daniel Palacios, former Minister of the Interior of Colombia.
Well, welcome, Daniel. It's wonderful to be here with you today at the Concordia Americas Summit. We don't have much time and we have a lot to cover, so let's jump right in. Let's talk about how cities can work together to tackle common issues such as crime, traffic congestion, and pollution while promoting public safety. I'd love to hear what Colombian cities are doing to share their best practices.
Well, first of all, Kristen, it's a pleasure to be here, and I would like to say hello to everyone who is in the audience. And as you just said, there's a lot to be done between inner workings between cities, especially in collaboration and integration. Why? Because most of the major problems that cities have are the same. Mm-hmm. All the cities have crime. Different levels. It can be very high, it can be very low. Some may be more gang-related, others can be more about trafficking, drug trafficking, or petty crimes, different. But at the end of the day, the necessities of major cities are usually the same. Mm-hmm. So when you have integration between those cities, you understand a fact that crime does not stop at a border. Mm-hmm. Crime usually spill over from one border to the other. Mm-hmm. So integration between cities, and this is an effort that I did as Minister of the Interior under President Duque, was to look how could we integrate more the cities. So one of the things, the major things that we did was unified Bogota with the Department of Cundinamarca, which is a state, and they're like the District of Columbia, where DC is not part of Maryland and is not part of Virginia. So in Colombia, Bogota and Cundinamarca, which are the biggest, Bogota around 7.5 million people, and then Cundinamarca around 3 million people. It's like 10 million people from a country of 45. Mm-hmm. So that integration helped us fight crime, helped us integrate the security efforts and the traffic efforts. And on the other side, the collaboration between all the three levels of government are the ones that help have a clear focus. When the state level, the city level, and the national level work on the same goal, then you can fight crime as a whole, understanding that this is an effort that cannot be accomplished by one. It has to be the three levels of government working together in combating crime.
That's interesting. We had talked before backstage about how many cities share the same problems, but we also share the same solutions. And then we went into some of the different mayoral platforms that they have to exchange best practices. And it's actually an issue that's so important to the US government that in addition to cities like New York, where we have my office that's dedicated to the exchange of best practices, but they also just launched a subnational diplomacy unit headed by Ambassador Nina Hachigi, and that focuses on this. And they're having their first Summit of the Americas next month for the cities in the Western Hemisphere to share more of these best practices, especially in public safety as well. But I want to pivot for a moment to technology and how the cities in Colombia are using technology to enhance public safety.
Well, without doubt, technology is one of the biggest helps that one can have in office for fighting crime and public safety. Without doubt, you have just an amount of resources, an amount of personnel, of manpower, and technology, without doubt, enhances that capacity of the government and of public officials to get to every neighborhood, to every square inch of a country. In Colombia, what we did under President Duque and as Minister of the Interior, we invested more than $500 million in bettering the capacities, technological capacities of our police force, working in partner with mayors and governors to invest in facial recognition software, cameras, body cameras for the police officers, also better equipment, helicopters, drones, because without doubt, technology is the best friend of the law enforcement and the worst enemy of delinquents. Because at the end of the day, technology gives you the capacity to be in places that you cannot have a police officer or you cannot have a public official all the time. What's tricky about technology is that if you have technology, there has to be a response behind technology. Because if you have a drone or if you have a camera, but the camera is just for show and there's no response, then the deterrence that that camera is gonna give is lost. So it's a work between having the technology, but also having the capacity to back that technology. And that technology has to come to more arrests, to deterrence and avoiding crime, because at the end of the day, preventing crime is the best way to fight crime.
Right. For us, technology is a key component of our public safety and security. We went from a time when every police officer had a radio where they would call information to every officer now having a smartphone with access to numerous databases of previous arrests. They have access to over 50,000 security cameras throughout the city, which gives them instant insight and context into the individuals they're dealing with and how to better assess the threats. What about cybersecurity? Are you doing any public-private partnerships in cybersecurity? In New York City, 85% of our critical infrastructure is private. So we've partnered with and set up an alliance with 20,000 private security cameras from thousands of different companies to help improve our cyber resiliency. Are you doing anything similar with private entities?
Well, this has worked very well. Like not only in public transport, where you have an alliance with most of the public transit operators that are integrated into the command centers of the police and the city for first responders, but also at the same time with commerce. So you have a lot of private enterprises or private companies that their cameras are connected to the mainframe, let's say in Bogota, where you already have more than 3,000 cameras in the system, but then the private cameras, they complement that system. And in cybersecurity, which I think is a challenge for everyone right now, we had this experience in the elections where we had a lot of cyber attacks. It's an effort without doubt that is private and also public. And every country right now, not only any city, has to beef up its cybersecurity and invest in cybersecurity, because without doubt, that's the challenge of the future.
And what are some of the key challenges that cities in Colombia face when they're implementing policy interventions for public safety? And how do you overcome these? We talked backstage about how for New York City, the biggest hurdle is community buy-in. We're a city of 8.5 million people, and as our mayor says, we have 30 million different opinions. So we get pushback on anything that we implement, and we do that through meetings with community boards, religious groups, civic groups, anyone who might be remotely affected by that policy. It's critical that we involve them in the policymaking process. How do you approach it in Colombia?
Well, I think that this is one of the toughest questions when building a plan for security. And maybe sometimes when you talk about security, you think that it's something that some very old people are working in a private room, and it has no connection with the public. And the main part of implementing a successful security strategy is elaborating a plan. If that plan is not connected to the needs of the people and where things are happening, then that plan is going to fail. So one of the main things that you need to do is to involve the community and also involve the different layers that make society. Let me give you an example. We had two major laws that were very important that we approved under the government of President Duque and I as Minister of the Interior. One of them was the making of the region of Bogota. This region of Bogota that I was talking before, we had to change the Colombian constitution in order to do this. This was so difficult for Bogota and Cundinamarca to work together that we had to go and change the constitution, then had a law that regulated, then pass it in both in the City Council of Bogota and in the Assembly of Cundinamarca. So this was a main effort. And the way that you did it was by working together. So you have to get people together. That's one of the main things there. The other thing that we did is that we passed a law for public safety in which we strengthened penalties and sanctions for violent crimes. And this was something that people were demanding everywhere. Tougher laws, people commit a crime and they're in the street then the day later. So we worked with 32 mayors of the principal cities of Colombia, 32 governors, 1,100 mayors of the entire country to build a law that was approved by majority, by like unanimous majority in Congress to strengthen these laws to fight against crime. So this is one thing that also helps a lot. When you get people together, you work with universities, you work with the private sector, you work with local and state government to build what you are going to implement as a policy. That's going to help.
Is it more difficult in Colombia because your police, I believe, is federal? It's federally run.
It's national.
It's national.
Yeah.
So is it harder to get local community buy-in because it's run at a national level?
So this is the thing. If you don't have, like in Colombia, there's a national police. So this is one of the biggest challenges. Because having a national police gives you the advantage that you can shift resources to the part of the country that needs it. Mm-hmm. If you need more police officers in Cali, you can take police officers from one city and take it to the other. But here's the problem, that mayors, they say, no, the police is national, so security is your problem. Mm-hmm. If someone's stealing, that's the problem of the president. Mm-hmm. So just stealing an iPhone can become a presidential issue just like that. Mm-hmm. So the thing about working together between the mayor, between the state level, which would be departments in Colombia, and the presidency, is fundamental for your policy to have an impact. And of course, that if a mayor goes in a different way, it's going to become an obstacle. Because if the mayor is giving a direction that is different from the president, then you're gonna have a problem. So getting along is very important in order to successfully have a policy that can impact security in the most small neighborhood of Colombia.
Mm-hmm. And how do you measure the effectiveness of policy interventions on public safety? What's your best evaluation tool? I know you're familiar with CompStat, which is a data management system that New York City pioneered a few decades ago, where we track every single crime that happens real time, and we can determine where that crime is happening down to the neighborhood, the block. So it really helps us identify crime trends. And all that data is transparent to the public as well. And that helps us determine if our policies are actually driving down crime or not on a real-time basis.
I mean, this is the basis of when you know you're doing a good job or you're not doing a good job in security. Mm-hmm. The thing is that right now, I would say CompStat is the state of the art. Even the first version, now you're in the 2.0 version of CompStat. Right. But for you to know statistically what's going on in a neighborhood, if that neighborhood has a gang problem, that neighborhood has a drug trafficking problem, how many shootings, drug-related shootings have there been, and that the effort that you pull in that specific part has a result, that's a way for you to measure it. But that's hard data. That's data that you have, that you can measure, and that's a way for you to measuring the result of your policy or the result of an action. The problem is that right now you have two worlds. You have the hard data world, the data, the statistics, and then you have perception. So when you're communicating or when you're trying to measure if a policy in security is successful, you're going to have to confront these two worlds. So if your statistics are good and your perception are good, well, you're rocking it. But if your perception is bad and your statistics are good, well, you have to better your communication. And we know that in the social network era, this is very difficult. Right. With social media, and this is very difficult. You can have a neighborhood that is as secure as it can be. No crimes, no murders, nothing. Then someone gets mugged, and that goes viral, and that neighborhood is the most unsafe neighborhood in the entire country. So that's one of the main challenges for public officials and for security to communicate well. And if you have bad statistics and you have bad perception, well, then probably someone's going to get fired.
Right. Or worse. So let's move into how cities can ensure that policy interventions for public safety are inclusive and equitable, and that all residents, especially the most vulnerable, benefit from them. We just spoke about the importance of community buy-in and the importance of tracking data and making that data accessible and seeing how it's impacting demographics and different communities.
Well, one of the things is you have to make, when you're in the planning stage, you have to involve the community. Because let's be honest, normally communities know better than even the police what's happening. So if you go to any neighborhood, everyone knows where's the gang, where's the corner that they sell drugs, where's the park that is very dangerous, what street to cross, what street not to cross. So when you're building a security plan, you have to get the community involved. Because if you get the community involved to tell you what's wrong, then you can set up a plan that can be measured. If they tell you, the light in that park is out, it makes it dark, there's trash, so people are afraid to go there, and you make it into a plan, then it's going to be able to be measured. Did you pick up the trash? Did you change the light? Is the park safer? So involving the community in the planning stage helps then measure if what that you plan was really done. And at the same time, that has to be something that has to be continuous. You cannot just meet and do it once. You have to get the community involved constantly. When I was president of the City Council of Bogota, we had these alliances that we made, and we went to neighborhoods with the government, with the law enforcement, and people would just go like, this corner has this problem, and then we would just write it down. There would be an instruction, you have to secure that corner, and then 15 days later, you could measure if that happened. And now Bogota has a lot of challenges, let's say as New York has. But you know what happened with New York, how it was, how it is. And in Colombia, Bogota had 30 years ago a ratio of homicides from 82 out of 100,000. So every 100,000 you had 82 homicides. Last year we had 13.2.
Wow, that's wonderful. Well, we have 1 minute left. I'd love you to give just a quick speed round of one success public safety initiative that you've embarked on that you'd like to share with other cities, and an example of a success of another city that you've replicated in the public safety realm.
Well, let me go in the end. ComStat from New York, it's amazing.
I was hoping you'd say that.
It's amazing. I'm not just saying it because you're here, but it's really, really good. And I think it has go out of borders, and people who implement it have a real view of what's happening, micromanaging, getting a hot zone, and getting all your efforts there to eliminate the threat or to change the perception in one zone. Also, Mexico City did it with a very, very large investment in technology. They have a very amazing command center with cameras all over. London also has an amazing cybersecurity system. And I would say that the laws that we talk about were very successful, and the other one was the transformation of the police. We did 2 laws that have now in Colombia a police that's closer, more modern, and more equipped.
Wonderful. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time, but I think this conversation just shows the importance of exchanging our best practices with our international friends, because we all have something to learn from each other. So thank you very much.
Thank you.